morning.
So the laptop, the money box, and the sign-up book, I put in your office on the bookshelf to the left.
Okay, thanks. Good morning. We're going to start today just with a short hymn sing. I think we're going to do This Little Light of Mine. It's, I think, number 118. 118. Actually, you probably don't need the book. We'll give you the words as they go by. But This Little Light of Mine.
Good morning. Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Kevin Baston, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. Our minister is the Reverend Thom Belote. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and to call your attention to the special note for you, Welcome Guests and Newcomers, on the back side of the order of service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. I would also like to welcome those of you attending online. I know that in this morning's email announcement, actually it references last week's service for those of you attending online, but rest assured the links are correct. So if you click on the link, it'll bring you to today. And I also want to note that the hymn lyrics and all the elements of the order of service will be displayed on the live stream screen for the online service. For the complete order of service, including weekly announcements, schedule, and upcoming events, the link to the PDF is in this morning's church email and on the church's website. I want to mention just a few things. We're masking indoors on Sunday mornings as a way of striving to be an inclusive community. All outside areas are now mask optional. In addition, the community room of the Jones Building is also a mask optional space. The Sunday social is hosted by Rachel Rose and the Welcoming Ministry. The in-person Sunday social will be held immediately following the service in the cast courtyard, and the online Sunday social will be held at 1 p.m. The Zoom link is in the weekly announcements and the Sunday morning email. I'd also like to call your attention to one special announcement inside the order of service regarding the church blood drive on Thursday, October 27th. I've been told there are multiple Halloween surprises for donors, so if you need any other reason, that would be a good one. So please consider signing up to donate, and see George Thompson, Sam Brooks, or Gerald Bonner with any questions you may have. And finally, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones to help maintain a worshipful experience.
I'm Glenn Maribach, the music director and music director of the upcoming musical I'll be talking about. For the first time since 2019, the Community Church will continue our tradition, which we began in 2007, of putting on a musical with, musical alls with, it's all put on, the actors on stage, the people behind the scenes, set builders, the choreographers, this time puppet builders are all congregation members. And this year, on the weekend of November 18th and 20th, in our sanctuary will magically transform into Shakespeare's Forest of Arden as we present a musical adaptation of As You Like It. With the genius of our set designer, Doug Adams, you'll feel like you're walking into the forest itself, surrounded by trees and vines, and he's putting together this wonderful jewel box transformer-like thing that's going to be a dressing room and turn into a Duke's chamber and then turn into a tree and then turn into a bunch of other stuff. So that's happening. And also, when you're there, you're going to meet characters like, oh, there he is, Duke Frederick, who's taken over the nearby city by force and in the midst of kicking out his daughter's friend and trying to interrupt their wedding.
I shall address a mighty power, and on foot I will take my brother in Arden and put him to the sword.
Thank you. Go Duke. Boo, that's right. Boo. Also helping with our show this year is puppet maker Mickey Reed, who you might remember in the music gala saying that wonderful When You Wish Upon a Star. And she'll be creating various animals for the show, including this venomous rattlesnake coming down the aisle right now, who in one scene attempts to attack one of our lead characters. She's also inventing deer and lions and all sorts of other fun stuff too. This is just an example of the wonderful work that Mickey's doing. The music and lyrics to the show are written by a woman named Shana Tao, who's an up-and-coming New York City songwriter, and it mixes theater styles like folk, rock, pop, gospel, R&B. There's even a 90s boy band number with like in-sync kind of choreography by Carol Parker, and even country and western, as we will see in this song performed by Duke Sr., the good Duke, yay, and his favorite honky-tonk singer, Miss Amiens.
Oh dear, my dusty dove, come hoof along with me. Our parents did this dance. The apple on a fall by the tree. Gonna hunt you down. Gonna hunt you down, down, down. You made me big thing, dearie. But soon I'm gonna hunt you down. I won't go stay. You made me big thing, dearie. But soon I'm gonna hunt you down.
Thank you. Sorry, we're just not going to win him over. And our very own Reverend Thom will also make a cameo appearance as one of the Duke's lead wrestlers, where he'll be able to put his CrossFit training that we saw a few weeks ago to use, and he'll be doing assorted windmills, clotheslines, airplane turns, and atomic drops, all sort of fun wrestling moves. So, got to come to see that. Only here in the Forest of Arden. You can find out more information on the small flyers that should be included in your order of service today, or by visiting our table after the service, or by visiting the As You Like It page on the church website. There's links to that. There's links to online ticket sales. and all of that. So, fall under Love's spell in this gender-bending adaptation of Shakespeare's classic tale of close encounters and self-discovery. And remember, thank you.
We are almost ready to start worship this morning, but we have one more announcement, which is that on Friday night was the end of our church auction. Bidding closed, and we have an announcement about the amount raised, which is that we have set a new record. The total so far is a little over $25,000. So, and if you bought something at the church auction, Joan O'Brien, who is really the leader of it this year, she is got a table set up in the Jones building, and she can answer any of your questions about how to pay for your purchases. All right, announcements are done. Now let's worship. One of the themes that's running through this morning is the hymns that we never sing. So, or at least hymns that I've never sung. And so we are going to start with number 51, Lady of the Season's Laughter. And I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we join in singing our first hymn of the morning.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa was one of the most influential and inspirational religious leaders of the last 50 years. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to bring about the end of apartheid. He later chaired South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Archbishop Tutu's famous sayings are inclusive, such as, "God is not upset that Gandhi was not a Christian, because God is not a Christian. All of God's children and their different faiths help us to realize the immensity of God. Archbishop Tutu's famous sayings can be challenging, such as, if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. But this morning's service is inspired by a few obscure words from the Archbishop. He once said, I manage with consummate skill to hide my horns under my funny bishop's hat. Are you curious about this quote? Well, stay tuned. It will be explained later. In this spirit of curiosity, come, let us worship together. And now, I'd ask that you say the words to our chalice lighting with me. You can find them in your order of service. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking before you. Give birth again to the dream.
Just want to give you a couple of the words to this piece, which I think are especially prescient today. How long? How long till every gun is silenced? How long till hate and war shall end? Till every battle's thunder will fade to blessed peace, and sounds of war will cease. How long, how long?
Before I introduce and open up our time of joys and sorrows this morning, I would like to place 3 stones that were asked that I place. First stone is from Bill and Joan Mead. Bill and Joan are mourning the loss of Bill's younger brother, Patrick, who died of leukemia this past Wednesday. Patrick's wife, children, and grandchildren were able to be with him when he passed away. Second stone is a stone for Eileen Reagan. Eileen's niece, Alona, has been hospitalized in Philadelphia for daily seizures. And Eileen requests your love and support for Alona's mother, Mary, and for Eileen as they help see Alona through this challenging health crisis. Then a third stone is asked to be placed by Carol Genovese. Carol's toy poodle, Teeny, who had been with them for 18 years and 3 months, passed away on Monday. Carol says that we have wonderful memories and a gazillion photos of her reminding us of all the good times we had together. And so we hold Bill and Joan, Eileen, and Carol and their families in our hearts. Each week we make a space for the sharing of the significant personal joys and sorrows that we bring with us to worship. We ask that if you have a joy or sorrow to share, that you come forward, that you place a stone, say your name, and in 2 sentences or fewer, say your joy or your sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust.
I'm Linda Thompson. A couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine died. Her name was Sharon, and we spent many lovely times caring for animals and learning how life works. She was a friend through the elementary and on through high school, and she went on to be a rehabilitator of animals and did some wonderful work. And the good part of this is that her daughter, Kelly, is now on Facebook with me, and she is just like her mom, and she loves decorating for Halloween and all those things, so I see that in her.
Yikes. Good morning, everybody. I'm Gerald Bonner. You might recall I was here a couple weeks ago for Share the Plate, and Gavin's groupies last week performed our hike at Mount Pilot. We had a good time. Nobody got hurt. Thanks to your generous contributions, in total we raised almost $12,000, and the chapter in the state raised close to $60,000. And we've got a personal thank you on the Facebook page, and I encourage you to look at it because the captions are quite interesting.
My name is Ivy Brezina.
And I'm Jean McKinney.
Jean and I have a sorrow in that our dear friend who was in our dream group, Heather Kramer, died on Sunday. She died peacefully. And Heather did a lot of wonderful artwork with our community, both from RE to adult. And she also did the lovely column in the Commons. So please take a look at that. Thank you.
I promise this will be short, even though I just put 5 stones in there. October is a wonderful month for our family. We have a lot of joy. We celebrate the double birthdays of my husband and my son, my mother, and my mother-in-law. And when we're not too busy and we don't forget it, we celebrate our wedding anniversary, which was 16 years this year.
Good morning. We're Charles and Lois Lee, and note well that she allowed me to speak. We are sharing a joy, a very special joy, that we have two of our dearest friends visiting with us from Sarasota this week. And note that they planned their trip so that they could be here in person to experience our church, because they're very active members in the Sarasota church, as we were, and they wanted to see us in person because Hank and Donna watch us every Sunday online in Sarasota. So they also planned it so that they would be sure that they could be here when Reverend Thom was in the pulpit. And so you're special to them too. So thank you for being here with us. We love you.
This will be a little repetitious, but my husband, Hank Prince, and myself, Donna Starr Prince from Sarasota, Florida, want to express our appreciation for the community UU Church and for our dear extended family, Lois and Charles Lee, and the UU Rowdies.
I'm Rachel Rose, and I have three joys. My husband, after his very significant car accident, is showing a lot of improvement, and thank you for showing your care and asking after him. The second joy is that our children who grew up in this church are living this church's mission out in the world. One has just pledged Alpha Phi Omega, which is a service fraternity, and they accept all races and genders because, much to his mother's chagrin, he joined a fraternity, so that was the best one. And then our other son is escorting people to abortion care who need a compassionate companion to protect them from people who wish them harm. And lastly, after years, I was finally able to take the Adult OWL, Our Whole Lives Sexuality Education, and I'm now an official facilitator of that course, and I thank this church. I'm so proud that we support that life-saving, life-affirming, life-changing curriculum.
A final stone is placed for all those joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts that were not spoken this morning. I invite you to join with me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, source of our being and our becoming, we hold in our hearts this day all in our community who are grieving from loss. The loss of a brother, the loss of a parent, the loss of a friend or a colleague or a congregant. We hold in our hearts as well all those in our community who are healing from injury, who are struggling with illness, or who are facing challenges, whether in their body or their family. we celebrate as well the birthdays and anniversaries, the accomplishments of our families, the joining together of friendship. Spirit, we ask for courage in these days, the courage to be true to ourselves and true to our values, to speak out when we must speak, but even more, to act in accordance with our words. In the spirit of all the joys and sorrows spoken this morning, as well as those unspoken and those in the wider world, we hold together a few moments of silence. I invite you to be still with me. Amen, and blessed be. Our sung meditation this morning is a hymn that, despite it being in our hymnal for nearly 30 years, I had never sung until the first service this morning. It is number 292, If I Can Stop One Heart from Breaking, lyrics by Emily Dickinson. And we will sing it through just one time. I invite you, and let's rise and sing for this one. So I invite you to rise and join in singing 292.
Our reading this morning is number 565 in the Gray Hymnal, Prophets, written by Clinton Lee Scott. I will lead by reading the regular font and ask that you respond by reading the italicized font. Always, it is easier to pay homage to prophets than to heed the direction of their vision.
It is easier blindly to venerate the saints than to learn the human quality of their nature.
It is easier to glorify the heroes of the race than
to give weight to their examples.
To worship the wise is much easier than to profit by their wisdom.
Great leaders are honored not by adulation, but by sharing their insights and values.
grandchildren of those who stoned the prophet, sometimes gather up the stones to build the prophet's monument.
Always it is easier to pay homage to prophets than to heed the direction of their vision.
Freely have we received gifts that minister to the needs of our body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. If you wish to donate online, there's a QR code on the backside of the order of service, which can be read by your cell phone's camera, and there's information as well on the church's website. We will now receive the morning offering.
Before we do this piece, the women of the choir, we let all the guys go. I wanted to read you the lyrics. They're by Susan B. Anthony, and they're set to music by Jake Runestad. The lyrics are written very small. Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Rise up. There shall never be another season of silence. Deepen your sympathy, then convert it into action. Pray every single second of your life, not on your knees, but with your work. Think your best thoughts, speak your best words, do your best work. There is so much yet to be done. Rise up.
It is easier blindly to venerate the saints than to learn the human quality of their sainthood. Now, I have to tell you from the outset, that this sermon might include ideas that you will disagree with. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you find yourself in disagreement, stay engaged. The worst thing that can possibly happen this morning is that you'll disagree with me. And if nobody ever disagreed with the minister, this wouldn't be much of a Unitarian Universalist church. I want to begin the sermon this morning by talking briefly about three religious leaders. The first religious leader is a minister by the name of Marlon Lavenhar. He serves as the senior minister of All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. All Souls Tulsa is the largest Unitarian Universalist church in the United States. Not only is it the largest, it's 1,000 members larger than the second largest. Being the senior minister of that church is a big job. But I want to tell you this morning about his second job. All right, maybe not a second job, actually, probably more of a hobby. Marlon, besides being a fantastic minister, also happens to be an immensely talented political cartoonist. His political cartoons are posted on social media, they've been published in books, and featured in the local newspaper in Tulsa. His political cartoons deal with issues: gun control, reproductive justice, legacies of racism. And like any good political cartoonist, he does not pull any punches. And, truthfully, a lot of his political cartoons take aim at a certain former president of the United States. I'll let you guess which one. And being the good cartoonist that he is, the good political cartoonist that he is, he does not pull any punches at all. Now, here's the thing. If you were to go to his social media and read through the responses that he receives, every so often, someone responds to his political cartoons by scolding him. But you're a minister. One commenter even offered a sarcastic response. Any other inspirational cartoons, minister? I don't care about dirty politics, and you shouldn't either. The second religious leader I want to talk about is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu served as a religious leader over several decades. He was the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, the Bishop of Johannesburg, and finally Archbishop of Cape Town. Each of those is a big job. But Desmond Tutu also had a second job, which was working to build a political alliance that would succeed in overturning apartheid. He received enormous criticism, indeed hatred, for his work to abolish apartheid. And some of the hatred that he received was from people who complained that an archbishop had no place in politics. They even accused him of being the devil in disguise. To which Archbishop Tutu smiled and responded, quote, "I manage with consummate skill to hide my horns under my funny bishop's hat, and I keep my forked tail tucked away under my robe." Or consider the third religious leader I want to mention this morning, Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama's job, as I understand it, is to be a living Buddha of compassion and the reincarnation of the Bodhisattva who has renounced nirvana in order to help humankind to reach enlightenment. Being the Dalai Lama is a very big job, an impossibly big job. But the Dalai Lama also has a second job. Do you see a theme here? The Dalai Lama is also, as if that first job is not big enough, the Dalai Lama is also the political leader of the government of Tibet in exile. charged with working to restore Tibet's political independence, or at least working for its autonomy from the Chinese government. And it just so happens that the Chinese government has invested considerable resources in developing propaganda to tarnish the name of the Dalai Lama. According to Chinese government propaganda, the Dalai Lama is a charlatan, a faker, a man of worldly concerns, a false prophet only interested in political power. And yes, Chinese government propaganda has depicted the Dalai Lama as the devil with horns. There are those horns again. We see a theme through this. Truthfully, it's hard to take seriously the complaints against these religious leaders. Chinese government propaganda should not be trusted. Defenders of apartheid shouldn't be taken seriously. And that person who sarcastically criticized the Unitarian minister from Oklahoma on Facebook, I did some digging and it turns out that they're a fake Russian social media troll. I'm not kidding. These criticisms are not offered in good faith. They're interested in preserving the status quo. But for this morning, these religious leaders who I've mentioned and the criticisms of them allow us to explore the dual nature of the spiritual life. The spiritual life as two. Minister of the largest UU church and political cartoonist interpreting the politics of our times. Archbishop of Cape Town and political strategist working to end apartheid. Reincarnation of the Bodhisattva of compassion, head of the Tibetan government in exile. And not just these three figures, Martin Luther King was criticized for being a Baptist minister and a leader of the civil rights movement. William Barber is criticized today for being a Disciples of Christ minister and the organizer of the Poor People's Campaign. And when I'm about to say this, please understand, I'm no William Barber, no Dr. King, no Archbishop Tutu, certainly not the Dalai Lama. Truthfully, I'm not even a Marlon Lavenhar. But I sure do know the push and pull of those who want religious leaders, who want their religious leader to be either less involved or more involved in politics, more spiritual and less worldly, or less spiritual and more worldly. Fortunately, nobody's ever accused me of having horns. Well, at least nobody's accused me of it to my face. And I wonder if it's possible that you've struggled with some inner tension to be more one way and less the other in your life. More this instead of that. Or perhaps you've had someone tell you that you should be more one way and less another way. Has anyone ever been told that? You should be more of this and less of that? Let me see if I can talk about this concept simply. There is an idea that the world can be divided neatly into two categories. It can be divided into sacred and profane. Religious and secular can be divided into spiritual and political, can be divided into heavenly and worldly. And then beyond this, there's often a value judgment that one way, the spiritual way, is better or purer or higher. It's a higher way of being in the world. Do these thought patterns sound at all familiar to you? Have you ever encountered them? And of course, one thing that we can always do with dualism is to reject it. Our spiritual forebears did exactly that. With the rise of humanism within Unitarian Universalism came a criticism of this dualism. In the words of the 1933 Humanist Manifesto, nothing human is alien to the religious. The distinction between sacred and secular can no longer be maintained. Wow. The distinction between sacred and secular can no longer be maintained. Everything is holy and nothing is holy. And we Unitarian Universalists, we are hardly alone in challenging this dualism. The Anglican theology of Archbishop Desmond Tutu says the exact same thing. Tutu biographer Shirley Duboulay puts it this way: Desmond Tutu believed there could be no separation between the religious and the political, just as, according to Anglican theology, there is no separation between the spiritual realm of the Holy Ghost and the material realm of Jesus Christ. I originally found Archbishop Desmond Tutu's line about hiding my horns in an interesting article that was written about his life after he died last December. The article was entitled, "Desmond Tutu, Politician or Saint?" There's that dualism, that either or. And the article seemed to really struggle with how to understand his legacy. But then at the end, it throws up its hands and says, what if these categories are bunk? The truth is that Tutu showed that the question of saint or politician is a false dichotomy. Tutu's genius was to recognize that spirituality and politics are ever aligned. Because when facing God, we also face our neighbor. The idea that we can face God without also facing our neighbor is a false distinction. I think of second wave feminism giving us the idea that the personal is political. And maybe these religious figures help us to understand that the spiritual is always political, and vice versa. So what's my message this morning? My message this morning is ultimately not to worry about the boxes that other people try to put you in. If Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama are accused of being devils in disguise, then there probably isn't all that much hope for any of us. And instead of hiding our horns, perhaps we should wear them proudly. Not shy away from being outspoken and engaged, whether that's for reproductive freedom, or for gun control legislation, or for green energy, or for voting rights, or for the protection of trans youth. Instead of hiding our horns, we should question whether dualistic categories, saint and politician, spiritual and worldly, nonpartisan and partisan, whether these dualistic categories actually continue to serve us well. We should interrogate the idea of what a spiritual life looks like. I began this sermon by saying that Archbishop Desmond Tutu had two jobs, spiritual and political. Really, he has one job. I began the sermon by saying that the Dalai Lama has two jobs, spiritual and political, and really he has one job. I began the sermon by saying that King and Barber and the minister in Oklahoma had two jobs, when really they have one, and they are one and the same. Go forth, feel empowered, speak boldly, but more important than that, live boldly. Don't hide yourself. And don't hide your truth. Amen. And blessed be. And continuing with our theme of new hymns, we're going to sing new words, which are actually old words to a hymn that we're used to singing with new words. The tune you'll recognize, it's Heiferdal, also the tune from Blue Boat Home, one of our favorites. But this is a hymn about working to build up that world. It's called Hail the Glorious Golden City. It's number 140 in your gray hymnal. And I want to invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing together.
City.
Please remain standing. The words for extinguishing the chalice are in your order of service. Please join me in saying them. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Before we sing Shalom, let's take a moment to give thanks to everyone who made this morning's service so special, especially the great music. For the singing of Shalom, please cross your hands over your chest if you prefer not to hold hands, but if you are comfortable holding hands with those around you, you can just indicate this by putting your hands out to either side. Now please join in singing Shalom. The words are in your order of service.